Thank you very much, Pedro. Oh, thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. As Pedro says, my name is Chris Calcutt. I'm a product demonstrator for the Focusrite Group. So for many years, I was concentrating on Focusrite and Novation products. But in 2020, a small synthesizer company joined Focusrite called Sequential. And then following that as well, also Oberheim. And so, whereas I suppose people recognized my face from Novation demonstrations, all of a sudden my playground got much, much bigger. And I had a lot more products to talk about, including those from Sequential and Oberheim. And in those 5 years since Focusrite and Sequential joined together, we've had a number of very nice products. We had the Trigon 6. Also from Oberheim, we had the OBX8, and then the TO5, which was the latest from Oberheim. And then just a little over 2 weeks ago, the public announcement of this, which is the latest Sequential, the Fourm synthesizer. And so it's a great pleasure for me to be here this evening. This is my first international demonstration of Fourm. In fact, I think this is the first dedicated public demonstration of Fourm anywhere in the world. So thanks for joining me on this. I hope you'll have a good idea of what the synthesizer is about, how it sounds as well. And when we're kind of finished with the presentation, I would invite you to come up and have a little feel and play of the instrument too. One of the reasons I say this is that obviously, like pretty much everybody in the world today, the first introduction to a new synthesizer is perhaps a loop-op video or something on YouTube, basically. And sometimes when you see a product on a screen like this, or even on a piece of paper, on a printed piece of paper, I don't think it really gives full justice to the instrument. So I do recommend you come and have a feel as well, just to get a sense of how well built and how serious an instrument this is. So Fourm, what is it? It's a polysynth. It's 100% analog. It's all analog in here through the voice path. We have some digital controls. All the top panel is digital. We have presets. You can't have presets without some form of digital control. But the sound it makes from the oscillator right through to the amplifiers, right to the exit of the sound through the output is pure analog. It has 4 voices, as I say, and it is small. It's a small format keyboard. We have a 37-key keyboard with quite an interesting story behind it. This is the first time since, maybe 1985, that Sequential have made a custom keyboard with polyphonic aftertouch. The last product from Sequential with polyphonic aftertouch was the T8 synthesizer. But this is a in-house. This is not, we've gone to a keyboard manufacturer and said, give us a polyphonic aftertouch. This is designed by the team in San Francisco and was designed alongside the synthesizer. So the poly aftertouch key mechanism is every bit as important as the top panel here in terms of control, expressivity, and the way that you approach this instrument. The other interesting thing about this synthesizer from Sequential, I think, is the price as well. Now, when you think of the Prophet 5, you look at the price point, and maybe that's a bit of a shock the first time you see the price point, because it's a big, expensive reissue of a classic synthesizer. It's the same with the Oberheim OBX8 as well. Very expensive products. Now, this was a thing that at Sequential, we're really kind of thinking about how can we bring the Sequential heritage and sound to a broader range of people, to a larger set of people. And a lot of work has been put into this to bringing it into the market at underneath €1,000. And I think I'm right in saying it's the first, certainly sequential as sequential, not necessarily sequential circuits from the 70s and 80s or DSI, but sequential. It's the first time we've had a synthesizer under €1,000. So I think this is quite an important thing as well, because it's a pure sequential. It has all that heritage and all that sound of what you would expect from a sequential, but is now I'm going to say the word affordable. It's still €949 or thereabouts. That's not cheap. Let's say it's not cheap, but for a sequential synthesizer, it's the most affordable that you will find today. Anyway, that's a quick overview of what the thing is. Let's have a listen to some patches to start with. So I'm very pleased today because today the second factory bank has been released. So it released 2.5 weeks ago with one factory set of sounds. Today we've had the other factory sounds. So I'll just play through some sounds for the moment. We'll just get a little flavor of what the synth is about. Oh yeah, this is a nice patch. I like this one because this allows me to show off the poly aftertouch quite nicely. This is called Shapes Emerge, and if I just play and hold, we get a nice, warm, rich analog polyphonic sound. And as I apply pressure to individual keys on the keyboard, you can hear there how the polyphonic aftertouch is able to bring out the LFO sound, the nice rhythmic sound, and almost give us a kind of bitimbral sort of feeling with the instruments. Oh, of course, it's good for bass. And again, you can hear with the poly aftertouch. Well, I say poly aftertouch, this is a unison patch. So this is a mono patch, but still that aftertouch. And again, if you have a chance to come and play it afterwards, try out the keyboard. I think it feels really lovely. Let's see. Nice traditional polyphonic aftertouch. And on here we have a little pitch bend. So just one of the oscillators pitch bending. Now, one thing I would say is this is a pure analog synthesizer. Some people were surprised when they saw the output. It's mono. Well, it's a mono output on a synth, like the Prophet 5 is. Also, with sequential and Oberheim synthesizers, often you will find effects built into there. The decision was taken to keep the effects from this unit because, of course, this is going to help with the cost and keep it within the price that we want it to be. But it's also very true to say this is purely analog. The sounds are purely analog. But of course, if you want to add any effects, well, I have Ableton Live up on my screen here. I've got the free Valhalla supermassive reverb on there. So if I think it's this one, just turn it up and then add a bit. So of course, a lot of people have a lot of effects already. You know, this is a incredible free plugin from Valhalla. So, you know, if you want reverbs and delays, you can choose them. They won't just be the ones that are included with the sequential synthesizer. They're ones that you can choose. Now, I'll play one more patch and then we'll go into the architecture a little bit more about the synthesizer. And the reason I really like this one is that this is making use of the arpeggiator, which of course is great in its own way. But the arpeggiator and the polyaftertouch can have a really quite a nice effect, I think. Because as you'll hear, as I bring out notes in the arpeggio, so if I just bring in, I'll open up this note here. It's like almost having a bitimbral sound. And it also brings out different rhythms within the arpeggio as well. And then, of course, you can back off to just be that nice, gentle arpeggiator type. So that's just a little showcase of some of the polyaftertouch things, but we'll explore how we can put all this together with the synthesizer now. So let's think about what we have here on the top panel. I assume that's the shot. Yeah, you can see on the screen behind me. If I'm talking too fast or you have a question, this evening is for you guys. So please stop me at any time and don't be shy. Please ask any questions you might have. But let's take a look at what we have on the top. So this section here, this is what Carson, one of the lead designers of the product, calls the meat and potatoes of the synthesizer. And essentially, that's absolutely right. This is the sound generating stuff here. And we have two oscillators, we have a mixer section, and we have a filter section. And you can see they're called out. They've got a white line surrounding each bit, so it's very easy to see and to navigate through that. The two oscillator structure is the typical sequential polyphonic synthesizer. And in actual fact, these two oscillators, if you look at them, are almost identical to the Prophet 5. There's a lot of similarities between this synthesizer and the Prophet 5, and some similarities with the Pro 1 as well, when we talk about the modulation matrix later. But the Prophet 5 from 1978 is widely regarded as, the sequential masterpiece. And as I say, there's a lot of the Prophet 5 here. So let's go to a basic patch. If you ever get one of these, it's a nice combination. Press minus, transpose, and the program button. This takes us to a basic patch. It's always one of my favorite things on any synthesizer, being able to go to a basic patch very quickly. So, there we are, the good old sawtooth waveform. I'll just turn this up a little bit in the program volume, just so we can hear it a little better in the room. Okay, great, a sawtooth waveform. It's the starting block for so many things. Here in the oscillator section, you can see I have a choice of two waveforms. I have the saw, that nice, very harmonic, rich sound. But I also have a pulse as well. Now, if I take the saw off and put the pulse on, again, nice, rich, harmonic sound. I could also, if I want, have a combination of the two. Okay, so this is a little bit more than just the saw or the pulse on its own. And you see here, I have a little blue label that says PW, pulse width. Okay, now you'll see these blue words across the whole synthesizer. These basically give me access to more controls. So if I press and hold the pulse width button on the menu now, it opens up the pulse width control. And so now, there it is. Now, if I take the saw off, we'll hear that a little better. And you can take it to the end, so it stops. There is no energy in the waveform at this point. And you can bring it all the way the other way. So whenever you see this blue line, if you press and hold, for example, here in the mixer, I get the noise level when I press and hold the noise button. So at first you might think, well, that's strange. Why do we not just have a knob here for noise? It becomes very, very quick and easy to use the synthesizer. And as I was making patches for this, I just realized that I didn't need the noise pot here. I just knew what to do. When I wanted the noise, I could just press this button and have that control there straight away. So it's very easy to use. Now, another thing that we have on the oscillator A is the sync. And sync is basically how, well, it's syncing oscillator A to reset on the phase of oscillator B. At the minute, I don't have anything turned on oscillator B, so I'll just turn on the pulse. There's that typical sync sound. And what's really interesting here is, as I can play around with the pitch using these octave controls, but as we've explained earlier, we also have polyphonic aftertouch on the instrument. So if I say, okay, well, let's take the destination to be the frequency, the pitch of oscillator A, and I'll put an amount on here, positive amount. Now again, I'll just filter this down a little bit so it's not too hairy, but maybe I'll open up a bit. This is just one of the notes I'm playing. So just the fact that we have polyphonic control over the pitch with the sync control here, that opens up a lot of nice possibilities with sync that you don't often see. So anyway, that's oscillator A. It's a basic oscillator. We have pulse and saw. Then we move to oscillator B, and let's turn oscillator B up, turn oscillator A down. So straight, same thing, pulse. So that's an independent control for the pulse width of oscillator B. We have the saw, of course, and then we have a triangle. A much softer kind of waveform, and that works in well with the oscillator A. Let's go pulse and triangle. So you can use that to beef up the sound as well, get a nice low end in with your patches and just in the oscillators. So I really like the triangle on here. The triangle is also useful with our polyphonic modulation. We'll come to that in a while, but the triangle's a very useful waveform to have there. But we also have, if I turn oscillator A down, go to a pulse for this. And then below this octave, we just get the click of a low frequency oscillator. So oscillator B can also turn into a low frequency oscillator, okay? We have a dedicated global LFO here, but if we want to have a polyphonic LFO, we can use oscillator B in that place. Now here's an interesting thing. If I play the next note, see that's twice as fast. If I go the octave higher, okay, it sounds a bit like a Geiger counter, but yeah, that's as fast as it will go. But basically, it's tracking, it's following the position on the keyboard. So each octave is a higher. Maybe use this to make drum sounds, but anyway. But if I go to low 2, the second one here, these are now at the same speed. You can hear they're different LFOs or different sounds. This is probably not helping the speakers too much, is it? But square waves at this, at this low frequency. But you hopefully get the idea. The low frequency mode of this oscillator can follow and track the keyboard, or it can be disconnected from the keyboard to give you a single rate. Okay, let's go back to an initial patch and turn this up again. Okay. I'll bring in the second oscillator, just detune it a little bit to get that nice analog sound. Go down an octave. We've got our mixer here, oscillator A, oscillator B. So that's very straightforward. We have, as I said before, the noise as well. And with the noise here, I can press and hold, bring the volume down a little bit. Now, on the noise as well, interestingly, if I go to the noise type, I have white, I have pink, which is low frequency noise, and violet, which is high frequency noise. So quite useful to have the two different types of noise that you can bring into the sound. So that's our noise amount. Now also, we've got the feedback here. And this is with feedback amount. So I'm just going to, bring that volume up. Oh, bring up the oscillators. Bring in the feedback. So this is with feedback. This is without feedback. So you can hear that makes quite a difference. So what's happening here is the output from the filter stage is going back in pre-filter. This is an old trick that you would do on the old Mini Moog, you know, and on the bass station too. You can do it on the bass station too. Essentially any synthesizer that has an analog input. We don't have the analog input on here, but we do have that internal routing to be able to bring that back. Now the feedback is it works really well when it's tuned in with the filter as well. So I'm going to try and see if I can. You can hear it just kind of picking out harmonics, sub-harmonics. These speakers are okay, right? That's pretty tasty. Yeah, so anyway, that's something nice to play with. But let's think about the filter. I'm going to turn off feedback for the moment. Turn down the resonance, and it's a 24 dB per octave low-pass filter. It is the same filter as you find on the Prophet 5. It's the SSI 2140 filter. And that is the filter that was used back in 1978 and 1980 on the Rev 1 and 2. It's a Dave Rossum filter. The guy Dave Rossum designed this when he was a kid and is still working on these things today. It's a really lovely sounding filter. It gives you that typical sound. Of course, it's a resonant filter as well, so I can dial in some more resonance. But if you listen, sorry if that's too loud, I'll turn it down a touch. But if you notice, there is no lack of bass when we turn the resonance up. So there is bass compensation into this filter, which of course is really helpful. It's the Prophet filter, but with some extra things fitted into there with the feedback, the bass compensation on there, and just sounds really great, I think. We've got an envelope amount here, so if we turn up the envelope amount, and then we can use the envelope filter here. And I've got a bit of aftertouch on the filter here. Oh, I want to put some reverb on that, I think. Yeah, forgive me if I disappear for 15 minutes. Come on, give me a slap, wake me up. I mean, that just sounds great, I think. Yeah, and that was just one note. So the filter is really powerful, really nice part of it. That's essentially our main voice that we have. There are some extra things in there as well. Let's see, if I go to my parameters menu, we've got the pulse width controls, different noise types. Key track for the filter as well. Maybe I can just quickly demo this. So we'll go back to a more useful volume for this. So, let's take that off. We've just got the same pitch across for the filter. At the minute, I'm making the filter self-oscillate. It's producing a sine wave. But if I turn key tracking on, now it's on full. That's just the filter on its own. Oscillator B and A are down. Okay, maybe I need to calibrate this. I've got one of the filters moving, but that's the joy of analog. You can see also in the key track menu, I can go to half. Now it is using 2 octaves to play 1 octave. So you've got a choice of different key trackings in there as well. So that's quite a nice thing to have. Other things in the menu, feedback, we've seen that. We have velocity for both envelopes. So we have velocity levels for the filter envelope and for the amp envelope. And we can switch velocity in here. But again, we've got the blue line, the blue word underneath. So if I press and hold that, I can just change and attenuate how much velocity control I want. And then, unison. Should I do that? Yes, I think we'll do unison. That's a, that's a nice one. And at this point, I am going to beef it up a bit. Let's get a bit of volume. And again, hold on to your hats. A little bit of detune, bit of envelope on that. Okay, so we have a unison switch here. If I switch unison on, we have a mono patch. It's now, Fourm has become a mono synth. And this is just using one voice. Which is nice. Which is nice, of course. For certain times you would just want to use the one voice. But if I press and hold the unison button, I can dial in more voices. So now I can say, well, let's use 2 voices. But what I want to do, of course, is to go 4 voices. So now we have 4 voices. Which is nice again. But now I want to go the whole journey with this. And I've moved to the next patch along, and it says, the next control along, unison detune. And that's without feedback. We could add some feedback. Why not? Let's go for it. So, yeah, sorry for your ears. But you get the idea. It's a small synthesizer, but it's a powerful, powerful sound. And it can go to some pretty interesting places. So, yeah, okay. I was looking at the parameter menu. We got through unison. We've done unison. Vintage. Vintage is interesting as well. So, back to the same typical starting patch for a poly. Bit of release on there. Okay. On the vintage mode, it's a little bit like unison detune, but it does more than just detune the oscillators. Vintage basically changes the behavior of the envelopes. It retunes the filter a little bit and retunes the oscillators. So at the minute, vintage is 0. I'll just turn the arpeggiator on and just press a note. And we can hear that's pretty much repeating the same sound. There we go. We can just hear that repeating. As I bring in the vintage now, as we're running through each voice, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, I should explain, sorry. When the arpeggiator is running, it's using voice 1, then voice 2, then voice 3, then voice 4, okay? It's just going round in circles using the 4 voices. So if I change the vintage mode now, we should hear each voice will go slightly out of tune and find its own place. Oh. You can now hear as well the filter. Some of the envelope shapes as well. You can hear that changing. If I bring vintage down again, it's just straight. So that's an interesting one. Vintage is a bit like detune for the unison mode, but is a bit more appropriate for polyphonic sounds, and it's not just tuning. It's not just changing the oscillator tuning. It's changing the filter as well. Okay, LFOs. Maybe we should have a think about Yeah, we'll have a think about LFOs now. So. Oh, take that off, so let's get a bit more. So we have a low frequency oscillator here, and we have a modulation matrix. This is a really important part of this synth. We've not even been to this section yet. I'm going to turn all the aftertouch stuff off and all the modulation routing stuff. So let's say I want a bit of LFO to control the cutoff for me. That's a typical thing to do on a polysynth. So I can press LFO, this is red, press cutoff, this is red, so it means that I've connected this to this. And now as I increase the value, there it is. If I use this, I can change the depth, how much it will affect that. Now with the LFO here, firstly, we can go very fast. We're well into audio rates here. Which is nice. But also, you see, I've got different shapes here. So I've got a triangle, I've got a square. I've also got a saw. And if I want the reverse saw, so I want it to be more of a ramp, again, I can press, turn reverse saw on. So you've got a lot of choices here, but then we've got sample and hold as well. You can hear the variation, the random style there, which is a typical sample and hold LFO. But if I press and hold this, I can choose different types. So now I have random. Random means every key press is going to give me a random value. So it's like sample and hold, but I'm triggering the LFO each time. I also have pink noise. It's a bit more subtle, but you hear the sound there. Or I can choose white noise. And you can hear, again, that's a little bit more crispy. Or I could choose violet noise. Maybe a bit of resonance up for that. Anyway, so we've got the different noise types, but we've also got the ability, let's put that back to sample and hold, the ability to combine them. This is a really complex LFO. And it's by combining all of these together, which is giving us the ability to do that. So that's a really interesting thing. So that's the low frequency oscillator. And you can see here we've got that routed via the modulation matrix just to the cutoff. Very simple routing. But let's say I want a bit more control from this in the performance world. So if I switch this to being blue, now there is no LFO controlling the filter. But if I switch this to blue now, still no control because I need to use the mod wheel here to bring that amount in. So this is a clever little system where we can have two connection types, a direct connection or what we call a scaled connection using the mod wheel here. Let's think about some of the other things we've got. Let's take the LFO off for the minute. We've got oscillator B as a source. This is a typical sequential thing. This goes all the way back to the original Prophet 5 in 1978. And this is taking oscillator B as a polyphonic control, polyphonic modulation, polymod, and it allows us to route it to various different places. Let's put it onto a triangle. Let's put it up a bit, and I'm going to route it to frequency A. You can hear you get these different very complex kind of waveforms out of basically frequency modulating, FM, audio rate frequency modulating of the oscillator. We could also say, well, actually, let's put it onto the filter instead. You're getting some pretty crazy places with that as well. But it's good fun to play. Yeah, if you want to go down those sound design routes, they're there for you if you want them. The other control that we have here is a filter envelope. Of course, the filter envelope is already connected to the filter by default. That's here on this control. But we have all of the other destinations we can play with. So let's go back to a basic program. Let's put the filter envelope onto pulse width A and B, and let's just add an amount. Let's take the source off. I'm going to start this pulse over that side, this pulse, whoop, over this side. Oh. I might have gone too far. So of course we've now got pulse width being controlled from the filter envelope. So we can use this shape to dial that in. Maybe I want LFO to also control that. So if I switch this to being purple now, so blue and red together make purple, now I have the filter envelope. Let's put it back up here. Maybe not too much. And then the LFO is on the mod wheel. So we've got really quite a powerful section for sound design and building patches. We've got 8 destinations. We have the frequency independent of frequency of A, oscillator A and oscillator B, pulse width of A and B, the cutoff, the filter cutoff, appropriately in this place as well, of course, and then the amplifier as well. So the volume, we can use this. In fact, let's put the amplifier on there. So that's now controlling the amplifier as well. And we can also have it controlling the frequency amount. So this might be interesting. We can now have different LFO changes because we're now using the filter envelope to change the LFO speed. Not the greatest patch, but you get the idea. It's there for you to be able to work with. That's the modulation matrix. So blue is on the mod wheel, red is direct. Now, we're not too far off. I should kind of think about reaching the end. I don't know how long I've been talking already. Well, not too bad, I guess. I could talk for longer. But I want to talk a little bit about the arpeggiator and the sequencer. So once again, let's go back to a basic program. Let's turn the arpeggiator on and, oh, big surprise. A typical arpeggiator. If I press and hold mode, you can see I've got my different arpeggiator modes. So up, down, up and down and up, random. I like the random on this one. And I can press hold to hold the notes. And it's just a nice way of just bringing in a little bit of control. I can change the speed. This is the clock division, and I can take it to half a bar or 64ths. So we've got a lot of range with that. There's a swing as well. Get a little groove in that sound. We've also got a tempo control. So they're typical things you would find for an arpeggiator. But if I press and hold mode, well, actually no, if I hit the record button, now I'm presented with a step sequencer, quite a powerful step sequencer. So I'll just play a chord. It's polyphonic, so I've played a chord and maybe I'll tie that to be a few notes long. Then maybe add a rest. And now I'll press this note and press the tie button and I get a note glide. And I'll do the same here. Okay, now I've made it, it's a random length, but if I turn on the sequencer now, you can hear that glide as well on that last note. I'll just hold that down. So we've got this sequencer, which is lovely. And I always enjoy using the sequential sequencers. They're very basic. They don't do a whole load of stuff, but they're pretty interesting to work with. You can clock these from external MIDI clock coming in. You can use this as your master clock if you want. There's lots of different ways of being able to use them. And I find them really interesting. But there's another interesting thing that can be done with this sequencer, and that is that it is also a parameter sequencer. Now you can choose it to be a note sequencer or a parameter sequencer. You use the notes as the messages. So if I go back to recording, and I'm going to just quickly I'll play a chord or two, maybe put a tie in. Okay. Now again, if I hit play, so we get the notes playing. But if I press and hold mode, now I can switch it to sequencer mode. Now I've set this to be a sequencer. Right, I'll start that again. It's been a long day. When I press and hold that button and I switch it to sec mod, sequencer for modulation. That's what it means. And if I just go across a couple of pages here, to the sequencer mode destination, I can see this is set at the moment to oscillator frequency A. So if I press and hold the key, so you hear that's just playing oscillator A now. And this is quite useful if you want drones. So we've now got the ability to detach the two oscillators and treat it that way. Of course, I could, if I wanted to, go to the mode here and set that to be oscillator B. Now that's useful in a similar way. We might use that as a drone. But also, I've got the polymod control here as well. So I can use that as a way to speed up and slow down. In fact, let's try that. If I put it onto low, and let's take oscillator B to the cutoff. Okay. Okay, well, I wasn't fully expecting that sound, but that's what we got. So, but it's interesting nevertheless. So we can use that for oscillator B. We could also put it to the filter. This is nice because now if I hold down a chord, so you can use it to control the filter. So that sequence is just taking those notes, and instead of triggering the pitches of the notes, it's manipulating and controlling the cutoff of the filter. We have some other things as well. So I can, for example, use it to control the modulation amounts. Let's put it onto mod 2 amount. Let's put oscillator B on a high speed to the cutoff. Again, let's see what happens. That's FM of the filter. Yeah, it's a bit crazy, but maybe you're looking for that kind of sound at some point. So yeah, you can use the arpeggiator as an arpeggiator, as a sequencer for notes, or as a second modulation sequencer. I think I'm pretty much finished really with this now. I didn't explain too much about the aftertouch. Maybe I'll quickly do something for that. This is so simple. It's polyphonic aftertouch. We can, in the menu, turn it to being a standard channel aftertouch if you want it to be, but it's here for polyphonic aftertouch duties. Let's bring down the filter as I press the note. You can just hear it straight away. It's lovely. That's from a very basic patch. I could also put it to the filter, to the frequency of the pitches. So let's get a bit more on the filter, and you can tune that in so you get a. So you get a whole octave. So you play a chord, and I'll just bring a note up an octave. This is where you need to start to practice a little bit if you want to do extreme pitch bending. But it's there if you want it to be. Quite nice for kind of guitar style. Let's see, there was a patch before that was a kind of a bit guitar-y. See if I can find it. It was called Arch Top. And I can't seem to find it now. No, it's gone. It's in here somewhere, but... Oh, there it was. There it is. That sounds a bit different from before, but So you can do all this nice stuff with it. As I think I played towards the beginning, one of my favorite tricks with this is this one, shapes emerge. The LFO is global. So if I use aftertouch to increase the speed, it increases the speed for all notes because it's a global LFO. But we want it to be used for polyphonic things. We want to be using it on individual notes. Well, the LFO amount is individual. That's per voice. So this is the sound that I've demoed to you earlier. And so by having it attached to the amount there means that you can have it bringing in and out on each voice individually, which is a really nice thing. I think I've kind of covered the synth now, and I'm aware of nearly speaking for an hour as well in a different, I'm not speaking in Spanish, so thank you very much for being patient and listening to me talk in English. Does anybody have any particular questions that they want to ask, maybe?
No distortion?
No direct distortion on the synth, but
we are recording. Okay. So,
okay.
No.
So the question was no distortion. So no distortion directly on the synthesizer, but you can kind of take it to quite nice, nasty places. It's not really distortion, but the feedback there is kind of overdriving and burning things a lot. You've got quite a bit of gain staging you can play with. So you have the volume controls for the mixer. You've got a patch program here, a patch volume, sorry, I should say. So you can play around with gain staging a bit. But like I said at the beginning, this is really focused in on what the synth can do in the analog world. And of course, distortion would perhaps tend to be analog as well. But, that kind of decision to keep the effects for the users to choose applies to the distortion as well. But, we heard some patches before that I think, kind of, let's see if I don't know if I can find any, but they're all, here we go, Aggro 808. So. That's a distorted patch. We don't have distortion specifically on here, but you can achieve those kind of distorted patches. And this is primarily from the feedback. I guess if I press and hold feedback, feedback's on 127 there. So somebody had fun with that one. But without the feedback, that's just a chorusing sound between the two oscillators. But with the feedback, getting that kind of distortion brought in there. But in answer to the question, no, there's no distortion directly on the unit, but it's there to be found when you want it, yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah. There's two buttons on the right below the amp envelope. There's a miscellaneous shortcuts. You didn't talk about this.
Yeah, okay. So these are very straightforward controls. One I've been using a lot, actually, because when we go to a basic program, we start off at a standard pitch volume of 100. This is the program volume. So this is the patch volume. When I press this, I can just bring that up. And I like to do this. I like things to be hot. And if I need to, I can bring them back. But what this is useful for is for basically leveling your patches. So, for example, if we go to the program page here, and let's see if that's program volume 110. And then if we go to the next one, which we just listened to, that's program volume 116. But the perception is that they're pretty level. So, with the different ways that you set the gain staging of the synthesizer, see you later, with the different ways you gain stage the synthesizer, you might need to just adjust the program volume to give you a nice level of your preset sounds. So that's program volume. The pitch wheel one, it's interesting it's got a button here, but basically this sets the wheel range for the pitch bend here. So there is 2 semitones, but if I go all 12, so that's what these 2 switches are for. They're very handy to have there for quick, easy access to that sort of stuff. Yeah, but that's what those are for. So good question. I mean, I often forget about these because, you know, they're not necessarily sound design tools. They're just more of kind of function tools. Yeah. Any more questions? Aha. Hey.
Hello.
Hiya.
Hi. Is my voice coming from there?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think this is more for the video, so it's
Yeah.
yeah.
If we close the oscillator beam mixer, can we use it like a real polyphonic LFO?
For sure, absolutely. Yeah, totally. You can stay with a 1 oscillator synth. In fact, let's do this because one thing I think I forgot to talk about and explain directly is the real difference between a polyphonic LFO and a monophonic LFO. And maybe you know about this stuff already, but it's always nice to just kind of reimagine what it means. So the question is, can we use oscillator B turned down as a true polyphonic LFO? Well, of course. So let's go for a bit of routing here. We'll go for oscillator B, and I'm going to put it onto the frequency of oscillator A, okay? And I want to dial in. This is audio rate, okay? So we want it to go down to, there we go. So it's a sawtooth, and but I want it to be a pulse. I want it to be a square for the person, for this. There it is. Now you might hear a little click because oscillator B is turned up, but if I take that down, that removes that click because we're not hearing the energy of that being a low frequency oscillator. There we go. Okay, so that just sounds like an LFO on the pitch. But if I play different notes, you'll see that they are not in time. So now let me try and demonstrate that with the same thing on the LFO going to the pitch. Oop. Okay, so now I've just got the LFO going to the pitch. Hear all the notes are all moving at the same time. Okay, let's do the that's right, I want that to be purple so we get it both. Sorry about the tuning, I'll get there. Okay, now let's play a chord again. You hear they're all moving differently now. Because we have polyphonic LFOs, we have more than one. This at the minute is tracking the keyboard. So remember when we said before, that's 1 speed. If I play an octave higher, it will be twice as fast. If I play an octave higher again, you can hear how that's working. But if I take this to not keyboard tracking, and now it's still independent, even though it's at the same speed. So if you kind of play a nice chord like, you get this nice kind of rhythmic feel. So, yeah, so that's really the difference between polyphonic LFO and a monophonic, global LFO. But again, to answer the specific question, sure, yeah, you can turn down oscillator B and ignore it as a sound generator, just use it for modulation in its own way as well. Cool. Okay. Yes.
I actually have 2 questions, but they are short.
No, that's fine. I'm happy with many questions, and they can be as long as you like.
The first one is, does it have a tune routine like the Prophet 5 or something like that for the oscillators?
So in terms of what? Retuning? Because on the Prophet 5 you have a tune button.
Yeah.
And you hit that, and it will basically run the calibration. Well, yes, in the global menu, towards the back end of the global menu, tune voices. So yes, you have the ability to retune the voices if they go out of tune.
Ah, okay.
I've been using the Fourm for a good few months, on prototype models, and I found that the tuning on this is actually really stable. I would say, maybe I shouldn't say, but I would say more stable than you'd find on the Prophet 5. But if you need to retune, it's there. It doesn't have a dedicated button, but it's there in the global settings menu.
Okay. Yeah. And the second question is thinking outside of the synth. Does the polyphonic aftertouch comes outside via MIDI or USB?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. So, of course, a huge part of my heart, of course, is with Novation as well. And the Peak and the Summit synthesizers are really powerful, and they have polyphonic aftertouch in the synth engine, but the Summit keyboard doesn't have polyphonic aftertouch. But now I have a control surface, a keyboard, that I can connect to both my Peak and to my Summit, and I have poly aftertouch. So absolutely. And I'm pleased you brought that up, actually. That's something I should say, The poly aftertouch is built in as part of the synthesizer here, but if you need a poly aftertouch keyboard as well, this, of course, is sending poly aftertouch out to whatever is going to receive it. So, maybe you could open up, I forget the names, Meld and all the instruments in Ableton that are MPE poly aftertouch sensitive. This will be a perfect controller for those as well. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Hi.
Hiya.
I have a question about the sequencer.
Yeah.
So you can store many sequences as you want, I suppose. You can do it maybe and then run those sequences if you have 3, 4, 5.
So the sequences are part of the patch. And actually, that's a good question as well. In terms of patches, what do we have? We have 2 factory banks of 128 and 2 user banks of 128.
Okay.
So in total, 256 user, 256 factory, in total 512. Each patch can have its own independent sequence. You could say it has 512 sequences, technically.
Okay.
So so they're stored as part of that as part of the patch, and recalled when you bring that patch back.
Okay, and how many steps you can put in?
Steps is 64 steps.
64.
Yeah, absolutely. 64 steps, which is, 4 bars at 16 step kind of rate. Or if you use the clock division, you can go down to half note there, and a 64, is going to give you 32 bars, I suppose, against a straight 16th clock. So, there are clever ways you can make it, a longer sequence if you want to. Obviously, here you don't have full resolution. You're on half beat values, but it's a total of 64. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. Yeah. Yeah.
And is there any software attached to this, like a VST?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, from Sequential, with all Sequential synthesizers, Sequential partner with a third-party company called Sound Tower. Sound Tower make editors and VST editors for a whole range of different synthesizers. And it's what they do. They're experts at doing that. So there is the Sound Tower editor. That was ready from before, the release. So that is available. That's something, obviously, you have to go to Sound Tower and purchase it. It's not, kind of a freebie that comes with the synthesizer. But if you do want something that can act as a very good librarian or as a VST editor, so within your DAW you can edit directly and I guess automate as well directly, it is available, but that's directly from Sound Tower. Yeah.
I'm making a question about quality, but of course I need to be a bit more specific.
Okay.
In my dream, there was always a Prophet 5, okay? But I have a very nice plugin, but we doesn't get there.
Oh, okay.
So I know the synthesizer because I used the UA, actually.
Yeah.
It's very good, but it's not him. So I came here because I read that he has a lot in common with the Prophet 5.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about if you did some test about the difference in dynamic, harmonic, and all that kind of, let's say, how close go to that kind of that sound.
Sure, okay. They're different instruments. They have a different, a different layout. There's a lot of similarities. You'll see oscillator A and oscillator B are pretty much kind of identical, although we have the octave control here. The filter is the same filter. It's the 2140 filter that is used in the Prophet 5 as well. In the Rev 1 and 2 versions, that moved to a Curtis chip. I think the 3340. Oh gosh. Anyway, no, I'll not get the number wrong, but it moved to a Curtis filter in the second one. The oscillators are produced differently in the Fourm than they are on the Prophet 5. And obviously, this is a different instrument. It has different gain staging throughout. The feedback, for example, is not something you would find on the Prophet 5. So that, again, will have its own sort of area and personality and idiosyncrasies to the sound. The envelopes, they are taken from the Prophet 5. They're modeled on the Prophet 5. So those are, like-for-like recreations of the Prophet 5 envelope shapes. And the fact that it has the two oscillator approach with that filter, it gets really close. But you've got to remember as well, this is, 949 euros synthesizer as opposed to, 5,000? Yeah. So there are going to be some differences, of course. I mean, I would argue the keyboard, the way that it feels, that's a difference as well. That will make you approach the instrument differently. Actually, I think it's perhaps a nice benefit to have the poly aftertouch on this keyboard because that gives you a different approach to playing it. So all of these things, it's not a Prophet 5. It's a Fourm. It's following a lot of the cues, the design cues, and also the sonic cues from the original Prophet 5. But it's its own thing really as well. I mean, this is actually more powerful than the Prophet 5, you could argue, because you've got more destinations, more modulation control. You've got the poly aftertouch on there. So, it's potentially more powerful than the Prophet 5. But if it's, if only the Prophet 5 sound will do, then it's the Prophet 5, I guess.
Prophet 5, like 5,000.
Yeah, exactly. Or the Fourm, which is, I think really good. Actually, one thing I didn't specifically mention, I was talking about the keyboard just then. Obviously, all the sequential keyboards for the full scale have Fatah keybeds, the Italian designed keybed. This one is in-house. I did say that earlier, but what I didn't really say too much about is the fact that these are small keys. These are what we call slim keys. And it means they're like mini keys, but there is a big difference because they're quite a lot longer than mini keys. Now, if you look at my hand position here, that'll do. When I'm playing the black notes on the keyboard, I need that extra space up here, which you don't get on mini keys. Mini keys are generally about half the size of this. So even though these are small keys, the slim key with the full length is actually really playable. And, it's interesting when you announce a new synthesizer that might have smaller than full-size keys, how everybody says, I can't believe it, mini keys. Well, they're not mini keys, they're slim keys. and they feel quite different and behave quite differently to MIDI keys. So, yeah, I thought I should really say that. In fact, so much, and I think I did mention this before, but Sequential have put a trademark in now for the name of this keyboard because it's it's an in-house, custom-made keyboard by Sequential. We're calling this the Tactive keyboard because of the polyphonic aftertouch and tactile approach with it.
I'll make a comment on your question, which is I'm a big fan also for the Pro 5 as everyone, and I tried every single plugin that goes over there. Maybe the answer to your question is probably the Fourm is a little bit far for a Prophet 5, but it's probably near than any plugin that is now. That's my feeling. Also, I've been playing that unit the last month and a half, something like that, and I love the Prophet 5. So anyway, you and all the rest, when we finish the questions and answers and so on, go ahead, play it,
come and
touch it, smell it, test it. Okay.
Maybe don't smell it. No, that.
Well, maybe not today. Maybe not today.
No, please do come and have a play. It's here for you to play with if you want to. We can probably find some headphones if you'd prefer, but I think the speakers sound good. Yeah. Okay. So we have no more questions. Everything.
Don't be shy at this point.
Yeah, don't be shy.
It's a bit general, but
Okay.
Yep.
about sequential,
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, if you
like to ask about the microchip, like the digital microchip, which is built like 40 plus years ago.
So which series microprocessor is in use?
Yeah, which also brings this to the.
Well, I don't know the answer to that, to be perfectly honest. And that's one for the engineers to talk about. Obviously, there is microprocessing in here, which allows us to store and recall the patches, and to be able to create the LFOs and the filter and the envelope shapes as well. The signal path is all analog, but the control is is within the digital realm. So there is a microprocessor. What the microprocessor is, I'm afraid I don't know. That one's a little bit above my kind of nerdiness as well. So well done. You've out-nerded me. That was brilliant. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, if I can understand my visual, if I can visualize, I understand better.
Okay. I see. Yeah. But sorry, I don't know which model of the processor it is.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's opened the door for the programmable synths.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. That was Dave Smith's original. Well, that's what he studied. He studied about microprocessing in the early days, in the kind of early 70s. And actually, his first products that he ever made weren't synthesizers. He made an analog sequencer and then realized that a digital sequencer would be better. So in 1975, I think, he made the Pro 600. Hang on, that was a synth, wasn't it? Anyway, he made a digital sequencer. And then after that, his third product was a patch recall system for analog synths from the late 60s, early 70s. It was a patch recall system for Moog modulars and ARC 2600s because he found a way that he'd be able to read the control voltage, store it, and then recall it and send it back out to the devices. So, it was probably, one of the first patch preset systems ever. And that's what he did in 1976 or something like this. And then it got to 1978, and that's when the Prophet 5 came. And the Prophet 5 was the first polysynth with patch storage. Tom Oberheim had made the 2-voice and the 4-voice as polyphonic synths at that time. But the Prophet 5 was the first one to come out with patch storage in there. And also the first one to have a set of common controls for all of the voices. Again, the Oberheim 4-voice was basically 4 SEM synthesizers attached to each other, whereas the Prophet 5 was a board like this, I move oscillator A control here, that's for all 4 voices on the synth. Whereas on this O behind, you have to do them individually. So, yeah. So again, you know, yeah, we're nerding out a bit too much perhaps now, but yeah, that's where Dave Smith really started with the processing side, and then kind of fell in love with the sound of a mini Moog and wanted to build a polyphonic synthesizer that he could use. So yeah. But in terms of what processor is in there, I don't think I'm really prepared tonight to open this up to take a look. Well, yeah, of course, yeah. Okay. But yeah, the other reason for me not to open it up is it's because it's his, it's not mine. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much indeed. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.